Hi, I'm Nick and this is the TbT channel. Welcome to this video, which is another pellet week video. Yay! Now, I hope you enjoyed yesterday's. I thought that was really good. I enjoyed doing that one a lot. But today we're getting a little bit more serious. We're going to look at pellet choice. Now, this is a thing, okay? This is a thing. Back in the 1980s, when I was but a young lad, I used to get very excited by shooting magazines. As you know, if you've seen any of my videos, you'll know this. There was always the latest, next greatest wonderful thing just coming out. It was like, oh, that's going to revolutionize my life. And there was one in particular. I couldn't find it. I wanted to find the advert, but I couldn't find it. It was for a pellet called the Sussex Sabo. Now, these were spoken about in revered hushed tones because the advert went, it was like a comic, a hand-drawn comic. And there was a guy in a gun shop and he's at the counter and he's buying a game bag, and he says, he's buying some pellets as well. And the guy behind the counter saying, Sussex Sabo, well, you're going to need a bigger game bag. Wow. I mean, that sold it to me. A cartoon had told me that would happen. And if nothing else, I am susceptible to persuasion. So the Sussex Sabo, I'll tell you about it in case you aren't aware. A Sabo round is usually in a tank. Okay, you've got a central core and then you've got a sheath. Let's call it a sheath encasing it. And as it goes whoosh down the barrel really fast, it opens up and the sheath expands and the central core carries on at high speed. In the case of the Sussex Sabo, it was a copper core, a very small, it was a 2-2 pellet. Obviously this was back in the 1980s, so 177 was still pretty much illegal even between consenting adults. So it was a 2-2 pellet that had this little tiny copper core in it and then a plastic around the outside. So it weighed 4/5 of FA, and it achieved some incredible velocities. And I remember, again, fool that I am, reading the blurb and all the proof that supported how great it was. And they had a chart with grid lines. Now, a chart, that's scientific, right? A chart with grid lines in it would show like a BSA pylon pellet down like that, Ely wasp pellet down like that, and a Sussex Sabo just going on, barely dropping by the end of it. You know, it's flat as a flat thing. That means you could shoot rabbits miles away. And it was very light because the plastic bit around the copper core was very, I don't know, they must have been damaging spring guns. They must have been, because there was no real resistance to it. They achieved a hell of a velocity. And as it came out, this bit sprung open and then the copper bit carried on. Sometimes in that direction, sometimes over there, sometimes down there. You never really knew where, because it was just thrown. As this thing opened up, it had just changed the course of the pellet inside. It go whooshing off. And not that there were many silencers at the time or moderators at the time, but they used to jam those because it'd open up as it got into the moderator and just, and that was it. It was broken. So they were cack, all right? That's symptomatic of the 1980s pellet design it because you can, because somebody will buy it. And I think they've carried on. The people who did that have moved into the fishing industry now, the angling industry, because there's some stuff there and there. Anyway, that's another matter. Oh, and also this particular pellet, the Sussex Sabo, it had an application pen, because you had to kind of squeeze it all together, then push it into this pen, then push the pen into your barrel and insert it like that. Always reminded me of one of those applicator things for Lillettes, or is it Tampax? I don't use them often, so I can't remember. But they were expensive and rubbish, and collectors loved them because It reminds them of when the world was just a little bit more poop. And so that's an example of a pellet that you think that's just, oh, it's got everything. But in reality, it doesn't work. Another one, here's one, look, a Prometheus. Look at that. Now, Prometheus, these were British made, I think. I think they were British made. I think that's, I don't know, some kind of, it's either tungsten or titanium or something hard in the center there, surrounded by plastic. So these are very, very light. So again, they'll achieve very, very good velocities. And because they're hard and because they travel so fast, they get amazing penetration as well. Now, these are left over from the 80s. And the only reason I've actually still got them is I threw them in the bin and they missed. They really were that bad. And very expensive. I can't remember how much, 125 in this box, and I can't remember how much they cost, but it was more than 500 real pellets that worked. But I was young and I was gullible, and I think we all were. So looking at today, oh, Champion Ballistics, sorry, just remember Champion Ballistics. There's another pellet that was utter rubbish that I bought. It kind of looked like a bullet, okay? It was a dome top. It had about 3 rings. Rings! Oh, in the 80s, the more rings your pellet had, the better it was. I can't remember why. The rings were good, but, you know, some of them had 3 rings. Hustlers pointed with rings. Jets. Oh. Yeah, the ballistic, sorry, Champion Ballistic pellets. It was a lead dome-topped bullet rather than a wasted pellet, but it had a BB jammed up in the top of it, and it was the pellet with the heart of steel or something like that. They were crap, but they looked pretty, they looked amazing, and you thought, well, that's got to be good, it's got steel inside of it. I mean, why wouldn't you? And there we go, that's what we did. So an air rifle pellet. Okay, this is an H&N FTT. These pellets in my Viroc 22 Springers, these pellets tend to perform the best or second best every time. I use them pretty much exclusively in my 22 air rifles because it may only be the second most accurate in some of them, but pellets make a difference in millimeters. I miss by inches, so it doesn't matter that much, but these are the best or thereabouts in everything. So it's a wasted pellet with a dome top and it's made of lead. Now, why are pellets wasted? Okay, when I say wasted, I don't mean they've been on the bong all day and they're just sat there monged out. I mean, they look like a shuttlecock, and the reason for that is it reduces its ballistic coefficient, because one of the advantages of an air rifle is these come out at an incredible speed. You don't need a license. They reach a certain distance. Aerodynamics takes over. It acts like a shuttlecock. It stops and it drops out the sky safely in most cases. Now, this means we can use air rifles, sub 12 foot-pound air rifles, for elevated shots. We can use them shooting into trees, for example, without presenting a massive risk and danger to people a long distance away. The danger distance is much shorter. But a recent innovation, not that recent really, but an innovation nonetheless, is slugs. Now this isn't actually well, it is a slug. It's a 223 bullet from my reloading gear over there. But this is what slugs look like. And to illustrate my point, instead of being a wasted design like a traditional air rifle pellet, for a start, they're usually heavier, so they retain energy better. And they're a boat tail design like that, which means ballistically they perform exceedingly well. Now, all this is excellent right up until you shoot into a tree and several hundred yards away, it's still traveling fast enough to cause a problem. So I don't know. I'm on the fence with those at the moment. I don't really hunt. I know that they do the job. But for me, that's starting to bring in the problems of a rimfire. So other types of pellet that we have, now these are BBs. These are actually lead BBs that have got a copper coating on them. If you've got a Baikal Makarov or something similar to that, that's got a BB magazine but a rifle barrel, these are the ones you want. And these are good because they've got lead inside of the copper. They deform when they hit a hard surface and fall to the ground, whereas a traditional steel copper coated BB will just bounce back at the same speed that it went, and they're not that great. So they have a limited application, but being 4.5mm, you can actually use them in a rifled 177 gun. But I can't think under any circumstances where you'd want to use one in a rifle. It just wouldn't work. And then we have wad cutters. So a wad cutter cuts a wad. You know, the name, the clue is in the name. It's flat-headed. So if you're hunting squirrels, feral pigeons or rats at short distance, out to about 20 yards, nothing works as well as these. It acts like a hole punch. It goes straight through. It leaves a nice large wound channel. Now I say nice wound channel, that's an oxymoron. You know what I mean? It creates damage as it goes through, meaning it's a quick and effective shot. It's not going to zip straight through it without doing any immediate damage. These do immediate damage, and at short range they're fantastic. And for any other type of hunting, I would say just use a round-headed pellet, because the best pellet for hunting and the best pellet for your rifle is the most accurate, because hitting the target is the most important part if you are hunting. It's also the most important part if you're target shooting, and you can get all kinds of things that was it the silver bears and Bisley pest control and things like that that have got a concave front on them, and the idea is like a dum-dum, like a centre-fire dum-dum, and they expand on impact. We're not getting the velocities needed with an air rifle for significant expansion. And there are some, what are those French tickler ones? They've got a little red knob on the end. And people are saying that it's like a polymer tip, like on a 17 HMR, you get a polymer tip. On a 17 HMR, it means as soon as it hits anything, it fragments. The whole thing fragments. It's incredible the amount of damage they do. In a 177 pellet, I've seen them expand a bit, and people are saying that's incredible. I'm more worried about the plastic knob on the end deflecting it off shot. And I can't see how, if you've got a pocket full of pellets, that they're not going to get damaged. You must, I suppose, if you feed them into a magazine first in a PCP or something, that'll be great. But to me, it just comes down the whole French tickler route of all these things over the years that we've been told, oh, it's the next great thing, it's the Sussex Sabo, it's the Prometheus, it's the ballistic. Air rifle hunting, to me, with the sub 12 foot-pound air rifle, is short distance hunting. I don't want to necessarily extend the range. Accuracy is where it's about. So I think you should simply find the most accurate dome-headed pellet that you can. Other people will say, I use these, like the FTTs or the Air Arms Fields or the QYS are the new one. They're supposed to be really good. It all comes down to quality control, I think, and repetition of pellet. If they're all very close to being the same, they will perform very close to being the same, and that is going to be better than any amount of sticky out bits, fins or rings around the piston. And that's my opinion. I dare say there'll be a lot of you using something else. There might even be things that I've not even been, sorry, covering up my microphone, not even been aware of yet. Maybe there's new pellets on the market that I just don't know about. And if there are, I'd love to hear about them, because if nothing else, I do collect duff ones. Please like, subscribe, hit notifications, and join me on the next video when we're going to be looking at preparation of pellets. Thank you very much for watching. Goodbye.